On the Cut. Reflections on life, work and trade on some of the main canals of England in earlier years of the century. Until the 1950s, generations of boat people were born, grew up, worked and died on the network of English waterways. Until the 1950s, most children of boat people were as close to the working world of their parents as children in the history books of distant ages. But this order of things was changing, and the canals were one of the last places to see this kind of change.
When I started on here in 1958, officially, left the school at 3 o'clock, and at 4:30 I was loading 50 tonne of sugar from Tatum houses for Leeds, with my dad, and then my old fella'd be off on the train back home, and I'd just finish it off, like put the cloths on and rope it all down and wash decks off, and by the time I got in bed, like we were 8 or 9 o'clock.
That speaker was the youngest boatman from the commercial canal years that I met in making these recordings, and his experience was different from that of the older generation who'd become involved with the canal world at the very earliest stage of their lives. Here are a few of his elders from various parts of the country.
I was born in the Lily and Evelyn at Braunston near Daventry, and I was christened at that church up on the hill.
I was born on a canal boat, a boat called the John, for Price and Sons.
My mother's parents came from Slater Street, Burslem. That's against Anderton Company Wharf. Do you know where that was? Well, I was born on a boat there called the Slavonic.
I was born up canal at Preston. That finished in 1947.
The unclouded expectations of the older generation of boat people that a future could be found on the canals is caught in this happy memory of a Cheshire childhood.
I enjoyed the whole life that I spent on the canal. They bought me they obtained as a gift from someone a dog for a companion for me, and I've played hours with the dog when we were stopped at either end, as we called it. The dog and me would spend hours playing at, well, throwing a stick, or once I made a harness for him and he pulled a box, and that looked as if he was pulling the canal boat. I'd leave him stationary while I walked 100 yards away, and then I would clap my hands and call him to come, and of course he'd dash to me, pulling the box behind him.
A child playing on the towpath, and no doubt a little at a time trying out ideas that could well prove useful in a future life afloat. Well, now, here are harder and more practical lessons.
I had to shove the tiller one way over, you see, and then my dad said, I said, I can't shove it any farther to him, and he said, well, I'll put the line around stud and I'll pull around. He pulled us, you see, he didn't get those. He got those and pulled around himself. That's how I got through that bridge. But it was all right after, when I'd learnt.
We used to stand on the stool, and Dad used to let us to steer. We throwed the fore in the boat's in, we throwed the tiller that way to turn around the corner. And the same on the other side.
And what method did he use to teach you?
You put a piece of cake on one side of the boat, a piece of cheese on the other. But when the boat turns the opposite way where that cheese is, you turn your tiller to turn the boat. If it turns the opposite road, on the same side the cake's on, you turn the other way. Have to go round the turn to bring the boat straight direct. Same you're coming into a lock. If you're coming in a lock, you just get the direct in the middle to go alongside the motorboat in the lock.
Cake meant push the tiller to the left, and cheese push it to the right, at least until the lessons in steering 70 feet of narrowboat had been digested. The practical standards that fathers set could be painfully high, and there was no escaping the rigours of the task.
Perfect. Perfect. He used to, if we clean the cabin out, I should be about 10. And he used to clean the cabin out if we stopped, you see. And he'd throw, from one end of the cabin, all the beds out, the cabin where the bed went, he'd throw every board out, what was loose. And if it wasn't loose, he'd loosen them so you could have them clean, you see. So we was at Stoke this day, and he said, my mother got one of my sister's baby, and then we'll scour out, cabin out. So he said, I'll throw you the boards out, Harry. So you can scrub them. So I scrubbed all these boards. And when I scrubbed them, I put them on the planks on the boat for dry, you see. So I said, Dad, I've done them all. He said, you never have. I said, I have. I'm going to go play now. I want to go play, see. Anyhow, he said, you've not done them all. He said, how many lots of water have you used? I said, one. He said, well, I'll get them off. He said, and do them again. And I had to do them again and wash them down with clean water.
This was during the First World War, you see. I had to work. I was only 6, I know, when I first started. I can remember that all right. I've been tied in the back of a boat to steer it. My dad used to tie me in with a piece of rope, and he used to say to me, if you want to do that, and then you'll feel the rest of the cruise ship bloody arse. That was just the words he used to. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot that was on.
But how did you learn to steer? Because it's quite a tricky business. It's difficult enough steering a smallish boat. A 70-footer takes a lot of strength.
It comes natural to you. The same with a piece of rope splicing. I can do anything you might have mentioned with a piece of rope. I was never taught or anything like that. I used to see my dad do it, and it's just gone on from there. I was happy because I got a penny. And when we used to be at Pooley or Colliery, the chaps there on the screen and in the stoke hole, because I had an old bike, used to go and fetch them bottles of beer, you know. They have their own bottles. We used to go and do all that blinking journey, about 2 mile, for 8 and used to keep saving it and saving it. We used to go to the pictures there at Polesworth. And we used to go, what was it, a penny in the pictures, and across the road, better for fish and chips. Because the poor old people, it was as much as they could do to feed us. And I come from Langley Mill, up the Arrowash, through to London, 1 horse, 2 boats. And I used to lay a leg through the tunnels with my dad at 12-year-old.
So you were working at a very early age?
I better work from the age of 6.
Even though that wasn't legal?
When that one, I used to have to dodge the inspectors.
What do you remember of the inspectors?
Well, I remember quite a bit of them. You never know where they was going to drop on you. Any lonely lock or something like that. There was the horse inspectors. And then you might as well say there was sanitary inspectors, you might say then. And some of them, the horse inspectors, they used to stop the horse anywhere and look under his collar. See if he got sore shoulders. And then perhaps you'd get to another lock. The inspector would be there to see how many there was in family, where they slept, how they slept, and so on like that.
Concern for the welfare of boat people, particularly the young, dated back to the middle of the last century, and the inspectors were part of that concern. Legislation was intended, amongst other things, to ensure better accommodation, better education, and a higher regard for animals. But parents had to learn that children's help with the boat would not be seen as that by the inspector.
Well, we didn't do that when we were little because we weren't allowed to. We couldn't carry a windlass when we was about 16. They wouldn't let us. And if they all put their mind to it, they know it's the truth. You ain't supposed to have a windlass in your hands. And we got stopped. We got our boy in Orland. We was coming up, weren't we? We was coming up there. And he was behind us, the boat was light on, and I was the lock wheel, and he was steering the motor, but I've got the wrong line on, like, pulling the footy behind. And I was behind us, standing on a stool just to keep the boat straight in the pan to go into the next lock. Bloody inspector come on after us and stopped us, didn't he? We had to let him go in the cabin, we had to do it the best way we could with 200. He had to go blow the locks and draw them up, and I was steering the boat behind her. The inspector stopped and let the lads there. When they come to you, they ask you how many there is sleeping on the boat, how many rooms you got in the cabin. They go on the boat, and they even pull your bed place down and look at your bed to see if your bed's clean, and see if your cupboards are clean with your food and everything. And if you got any places you can wash you, And all this.
Inspector, there used to be one, well, you never know where you're going to see one of them. You can see them all the way. You see them out Port, Chester, Nantwich, or Wolverhampton, Birmingham. What they call boat inspectors. Now, they watch your boat were in good condition, kept up to the standard. You've got to have a side pump. That's for pumping the water out the boat for lead. Got to be in good, your water can got to be in good condition, and all your cabins, and you got to be clean, and watch you hadn't got too many children overcrowded.
What was the permitted amount that you were allowed to carry?
If it were to work by shifts, it were 4 men or 4 women over. If to be worked by a slow boat, it were 2 men or 2 women, or man and wife and 2 children. If they were girls, under 12. If they were boys, under 14. That's what you're allowed for. If they got a 4 cabin, you're allowed to have 4 children. That's 2 under 12 in the 4 cabin, you see. You have 2 in the 4 cabin.
What would they do about it if you met them unexpectedly and you were carrying crew that you shouldn't be carrying?
Well, they'd just warn you for the first time, but the next time you had to put that child off and they would summons you for having too many what the boat registered for.
Could they also do something about the children going to school?
Yes, when you got to the end, you used to have a school book, and you used to have to send them when you was tied up at the end. So if every day you stopped, when you stopped today, you could send your child to school, and they used to sign a book. There used to be schoolmasters come and examine that book, wherever you was, to look at it.
We couldn't go to school. We're supposed to go to school so many times in a month, you see. Well, you had a book. Well, yeah, when you went if we stopped at the potteries, I went to Stoke School. I've been in there 10 minutes, but I got a mark. You see, I was all right. And then I've been in Burslem School, still the same. And I wouldn't go to... I went to Retrury, I went there. But I wouldn't go to Tunstall School, and I wouldn't go to the school at Runcorn. I wouldn't go.
But when you went to those schools that you did like, Annie, it wasn't possible for you to settle down for any length of time. So what did you do?
Within 10 minutes. They used to bring us a slate, as one of the years gone by, some sand on it, and a pen, a slate pencil. And we used to scribble on this pen, see. And they shout, I used to put you in your line at school. I was in standard 1 when I finished going altogether. And they used to put me in standard 1. Before I went in school, we used to have prayers. And before we went and had a prayer, I got come out.
In later years, the larger companies, especially those in the south of the country, made efforts towards ensuring a better educational opportunity for the children of their employees.
They opened the school at Birmingham for boat children, and they did all they could to persuade you to send them to school. In our particular case, we sent my eldest girl, June. She went. They lived in a hostel and went to a local council school in Birmingham, and they saw that they took them there, and they take you with them, and they took them there and saw that everything was in order.
That must have, as an idea, taken quite a lot of getting used to.
I think so. It didn't seem, to a lot of it didn't seem right at all. To part with your children. Boat people don't have children just to put them away somewhere. I think more so, if a man lives in a house, he goes to work and leaves his children behind. But when he works at a canal boat, his children are there all day, all the time. And I think he's sharing, isn't he? He's sharing the burden of the child as well, with his wife.
Everybody's working, incidentally, including the children.
Yes, to a point, yes. But I don't know whether you'd class a child working on a canal boat as a boy helping his dad dig the garden. I don't know whether you'd take it like that, but that's how it seemed to be. I think there was...
A bit more risky,
there was the authorities, yes, but there was the authorities who thought they were earning a living, earning their keep, or earning a living underage. I think that... I don't think we saw it like that.
You didn't agree with the inspectors?
I think we ought to have done more so than we did, perhaps. I think they were on our side, very much so. But I honestly believe that if we'd have educated children to a certain point, that would have been the end of the line, the end of boat people as they were. I don't think educated children would have come back boating.
The conflict between education and employment for canal children, clearly outlined there by a Leicestershire boatman. Much easier to attend than schools, and not so demanding, were the missions and welfare centres for boat families. They were in the largest cities. But in deepest Northamptonshire, I met a man who ran a kind of mobile welfare service with a pair of narrowboats after World War II. One of the boats was called Salvo, and that name was carefully chosen.
We started off, first of all, with we called it the Salvo. It had been the Cornwall originally, and it was already turned into a house, but when we bought it, we had on the fore end, we had a little meeting room, you see, for the boat children, because there were several hundred boat children at that time, and they never had any schooling, any education of any kind. We set out, my wife and I, set out just to help the boat children. We did film shows for them, puppet shows, taught them a little reading and writing, and we travelled around all over the place with them. Then in the winter we had a depot up at Hawkesbury Junction during the winter, a hut belonging to the waterways, and it was heated and lighted by them. We had the children in almost every day during the winter and in the evening time.
Was your main effort educational and army work, or was it in any sense welfare?
It was welfare entirely. We had no qualifications for education, but we just taught the children simple little things, how to write their own name and that kind of thing, you see, nothing more. In fact, we couldn't do that because we only had them for an hour or so, and then we might not see them again for a month or 6 months even, you see.
Now, the Salvation Army has its own style of doing things. How did you bring that style afloat? How did you get it on the canals?
We didn't. We never intended to turn them into Salvationists or anything like that. We just came with one idea of helping them.
How did that work out?
Oh, it was a great success. Any of the boat people will tell you anywhere that it was an enormous success. The children had never had anything like it before. They didn't take to us immediately, because they never take to they didn't take to anybody immediately when they got to know us. It was great, really. We used to collect them and take them in every night, practically, into our little hut up there. And then during the summer months, we travelled around and tied up at night where they used to tie, you see, because there was always some place where we could find them.
That meant that, in passing, you'd got to learn to deal with the canals yourself?
Oh, yes, we travelled all over the system. Well, the system that was used commercially. We didn't go on the other parts of the canal.
What kind of population did you find?
What, of the boat people?
In the 50s?
Well, I've got a register, and we've got between 300 and 400 children on that. We were more interested in the children than anything.
Salvo, the boat from the Salvation Army. Well, now here's a Rickmansworth boatman talking about some of the practical things that he needed to learn from his older brother as he grew up on the canal. I suppose in school they could have been called economics and geography.
If you take on a thing, always make out so much that you need in hand so as you don't get in debt. Look at it from the economic point of view. You see, you had a pony where you've got to allow yourself, say, £1 a week for corn. And then if you've got a stable, which was threepence a night, you see, that was 7 nights or 6 nights at threepence a night. You've got to work your food and all in, you see, 2 of you.
But did anyone give you any kind of economic training, or was it your brother's sense of know-how?
On my brother's sense of know-how, that was all, because, I mean, we never had no schooling. No one knows, you see, but we picked this up as we went along.
That does pose another problem as well. You could be asked to go to places that you might not know.
Yeah, but we always
were there maps or anything like that?
No, there was no maps, no. No, we had an idea, you see, on the canal, as we've probably got today, Birmingham, Leicester, Nottingham, Loughborough, Market Harborough, all these places, we all know where they was, till eventually, I mean, you just go by a canal and you say, hey, which is so-and-so. If I was a lockkeeper, you see, you'd say, right or left, go to Branston, turn left off, carry on the Oxford Canal until you get to so-and-so, and then turn right and go on the Birmingham Canal, you see. Every boatman, it doesn't matter how young or how long they lived on it. I've known youngsters at 9 and 10 years of age. Go and they go on their own.
Another important practical lesson was boat orderliness. A tightly confined and possibly dangerous space does require disciplined management. The top of the cabin, for instance.
We used to have what they call a cabin shaft, just along the cabin top. So if you get any rubbish on your propellers, you can put it to a bridge, if she won't chuck it up in reverse. Put it to a bridge or get it to a lock. You can put the shaft under and feel it and pull it off. It's handy to either catch hold on. If anybody slips in the cut, it's handy to grab, or to shove your boat over, or to push it off.
Again, thinking of control things, where would you keep such things as lines, extra lines, not the towing lines?
Our boats used to have planks on, and the boards across there, 2 boards about that wide. Something about like that. But the cloth hold them. Keep them under there in the dry.
Did you always keep them in the same place?
Yeah.
And you said in the dry?
In the dry. When they was on cloth, it was raining, that never got wet. The water used to run into the boat or off. And in the winter, we used to keep them in the engine room, because you get flows if it got damp. Keep them in the engine room.
Ropes are important to the boatman.
Oh, yes.
What sort of skills did you have to learn to say, well, I am a boatman, I can use rope?
Well, splicing them. If they break, splice them together, splice a noose in them. Or if you're in a hurry, you tie a quick knot in them. And a line, an ordinary line like that, but cotton, you drag it through the cut and through your hand. Drag it through your thumb like that. And swill it. And then hang it, let it drain, hang it in the engine room. The heat of the engine dries it. And then you can always get hold of it, sometimes change it when there's a frost about. That's in the winter. The same thing applies all times. Your ropes are important. And you mustn't, same as on this cut in them days, you must not have a weak, I'll repeat, a weak rope. We always used to keep one on the cabin top, at this side of the water cannons. Coil up like that. We always used to keep it there with the end sticking up that much.
Just an inch or so?
That's all. So if the engine failed, stopped on top centre when you were going in a lot, because we hadn't used to go in slow. It was full belt. Till the bow ends went by the top gate and then both back together, reverse, and oil. If they failed, you didn't bother with the engine, jumped off with the rope. And the stump, check the boat from the bottom gate. It wasn't for swank or tidy, it was here for the purpose, but it was kept clean and tidy.
You've mentioned cans for a moment. Where would you keep your cans, and what about your mop?
If you look outside, you'll see them. And they're in the right position and the right style as where they're always kept.
Why are they kept there?
It's the proper way to fit them. They don't look nice if you put them any other way. When you go outside, I'll show you. I'll alter them cans and show you. They don't look nice if they're not the right way.
Just a few of the many things that you needed to know to become an efficient boatman or boatwoman. Growing up on a boat was a continuous process of learning, and each step and each purpose in learning was grasped at the same time. But for the post-war generation, that learning now seemed very much in question.
Children would have boated better without an education than with one, as I did. That was a part of boat people. I don't think I'm as good a boatman as a man who never went to school, a man who had done it all his life and never done anything else, never been to school, never been in the army. I think he was a probably more dedicated boatman.
Those taking part in today's edition of On the Cut were Brian Robinson, Jack Monk, Jack Meredith, Alice Barnett, Joe Robinson, George Marlowe, Mary Safe, Annie Brooks, Reg Barnett, Frank Fielding, Alf Best and Jack Kent. Next time, in the last of these programmes, boat people talk about the end of the commercial era on the Cut.